we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I am just so excited to talk to Josh Lee today. And let me tell you a little bit about him before we get into it. So, Josh is the founder of First Light Studios. It's an Amazon and e-growth agency that helps legacy brand owners bring their products online with integrity and impact. Josh works with business owners who have built trusted brands over decades, often found themselves on retail shelves like REI, Walgreens, CVS, or social shopping, but they haven't quite cracked the code yet for Amazon, Walmart.com, or social shopping. His team helps those businesses protect their legacy while expanding online the right way. So, Josh, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. So great to be here. I'm really excited for the call today.
Good, good. All right. So, your random question, my friend.
Okay.
What completely irrational hill are you willing to die on?
Irrational Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it could be deep or it could be not deep.
Why don't you
Okay.
give us a little of both? I don't know.
I think on the deeper side, this is a lesson that I learned a little bit later, but I think progress is a byproduct of great leadership and being able to inspire and to connect people's dreams and passions with what it is that they need to do. And so I think if an organization has stopped growing,
All right, Josh, that sounds very rational to me. We want the irrational. What hill are you willing to die on?
gotcha. It was irrational to me when I was younger, but it is
Okay.
rational.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Irrational. That's a good question. A lot of what I can think about is more leadership related right now.
It's just the era, right? It's the era that you're in, like growing your company and so forth. But think about your
I'm so locked in on leadership. It's
yeah,
hardto think
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
anything else.
I
I think about it
100%
all
get
the
it.
time.
So think about your personal life, right? And your personal
Hmm.
values, like your wackadoodle values. I would say for me, it's probably you should actually be
Hmm.
nice to people. I'm willing to die on the
Yeah.
sort of let's be nice to people when we're driving.
Yeah.
Okay? Like,
Yeah.
right? And you want to hear, okay, so now I'm going to just go off on a
Hmm.
total rant. All right.
Hmm.
And this is an interesting one. And
Yeah.
so if you are listening to me and you do this, don't do it anymore. Okay. You're on the freeway. All
Right.
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 Somebody is in a turn only lane
Okay.
and they have their blinker on to get into the next lane, right?
Yeah.
Now, they have to get over because they don't want to get off the freeway. Let them in. Okay? Let them in. Do you know how many times, Josh, I
Wow.
see some, or me, right? I've got my
Right.
blinker on. I'm trying to get over. There's a car that's either going this is blocking my way in order to get over. I have my blinker on. They
Yeah.
won't let me go. And then they speed up and go ahead of me and go into the lane that I'm in.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And on the flip side, you can say, just don't let them in and bump into them. Right? That
Well, I'm not
you
sure
could do
that's a good
that.
solution, but I'm willing to die on
I'm
that
just kidding.
irrational hill of
Yeah.
like shaming and cursing and like
Yeah. Yeah.
wishing very bad things on those people.
Sure.
Okay.
Common.
So that is my very particular irrational hill that I am willing to die on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good one for sure. I appreciate you sharing because it just reminds me of something that we deal with all the time. It's very similarly related. I didn't think it was irrational, but I suppose it is if somebody does you bad in a business deal, for instance, something that may be illegal, it's actually better to just let it go than to take legal action. Is that irrational? Or,
I don't know, say more.
I mean, the energy and effort it requires to get back at somebody legally, you could put towards your business, your family, and energy is all you really have. It's a finite amount. So you
Yeah.
really it's better to really just forgive and forget than to hold on to it.
Yeah, I hear you. I often think about that for myself and for my clients around what is the quality of life that you want to have.
Right.
I would say that I wouldn't just blanket agree, but most of the
Mhm.
time I am right on the same page with you.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Right.
sure. And it depends on the circumstance,
Right.
but
Sure.
generally I value my energy and potential more than the than whatever I'm gonna recover,
Right.
and it doesn't actually get me anything.
And then the other thing is too, well, you bring up such an interesting point because I think that we, like, if we are going to sue, right? And because we're quote unquote,
Yeah.
I think that what you don't often understand unless you are
Mhm.
in the legal system is right does not necessarily equal justice, right? Even
Yeah.
legally right does not necessarily equal and the
Right.
outcome that you think
Yeah.
that you are.
And yeah, and I feel like we might be getting a little deep here. I'm not a legal guy, but to your point, the justice system, the courts and all the procedures, it's still a system, so it could be
That's right.
gamed. So true
That's right.
justice, it may or may not depend on the courts. So,
That's right. Exactly.
and
Oh,
that's
we
where the
did get,
battle
I
gets
got to tell
messy.
you, okay, friends, you are in for a deep discussion here. You can already tell Josh is a deep thinker, which I love. So let's get into leadership, which I know you're super passionate about and think a lot about. So the
Absolutely.
first thing is not necessarily a leadership question, but I do think it's an interesting question,
Mhm.
which is about expectations, right?
Mhm.
Conventional wisdom of what you thought success was going to look like. You look either at your family of origin or a mentor or what society says
Mhm.
should look like and that you should do that. So
Mhm.
what's one thing that you did early on that you now realize is just not a really good fit for who you are?
I got paired with a CEO at a publicly traded company to mentor me for a year.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
was 18 and he's based in the LA area. And he took me out to dinner and he recommended that I work for big companies early on because that's where he worked and he worked his way up and he became underwings of certain people, which is how it works in a lot of corporations. And I started to do that myself, but looking back now, I'm in my mid 30s. Looking back now, I actually wish I started doing the thing that I've always wanted to do, entrepreneurship, because your tooling and your equipping, I think for my circumstance and myself, I would have figured it out anyways. I can't say that for everybody, but just the way that I grew up having to be a bit more scrappy and more frugal and creative in solutions, I would have figured it out. So I didn't necessarily need to go at a company to understand how the process is done. I think that was true back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but a lot of those methods and ways of doing things, it you can find it online or learn it in different ways, in different creative
Right.
ways.
Yeah.
You could shadow people for a week if you really wanted to. You can find people who do that for free, right? don't get
Right.
paid for it and just do it.
Right. Yeah. But
Things
you
like
don't have to
that.
sell your soul for a number of years.
Totally. Yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and so but I what I do wish he said was find a good leader that you can emulate and build up on because that's the thing that is really important is understanding in a 24-hour day, what are they doing? How are they spending their time? What are they thinking about? Because what I that's that would have been the greatest return on my time and experiences, spending time with great leaders and being able to emulate and copy them. I think there's
Right.
no shortcut to that.
Mhm.
Being with them, being in that energy, going from meeting to meeting together, that's different than watching it on a documentary or reading about it. It's
Right. Right. Right.
you're
Right.
experiencing it in real time
Mhm.
because then you realize, oh, this is what it takes.
Right.
And then you can figure out how far away you are from that and if you really
Right.
want to do it.
Right. There's so many gems there. There's so many good things to expand on. One thing I will say to you is that it brings to mind a story about my son. So when he was in college, he started a company to
Mhm.
make backpacks,
Mhm.
unisex backpacks.
Yeah.
And what he did was he would go to basically the junkyard. It's called a pick and pull for
Yeah.
cars, right?
Yeah.
And
I've
he'd
been to pick
go,
and pull.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he'd go and he would cut out the either vinyl or leather from the seats,
Huh.
right? And he'd
Interesting.
also cut the seat belts. Then he figured out a way. We actually bought him an industrial sewing machine
Okay.
and he figured out how to make these backpacks,
Huh.
right? They were very cool. What's interesting is, and he has this design architecture kind of
Okay.
mind, right?
Yeah.
And the seat belts were the closure
Yeah. Very
and the
cool.
strap, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Very cool. And he was constructing them, right?
Yeah.
And then at one point, he came to me and he said, "Hey, mom, will you actually teach me how to sew?" And I said to him, "No,
Okay.
because you have come up with some of the most creative ways to construct these. And I actually think that the conventional structures and rules of sewing
Right.
actually are not going to help you. They're going to actually hinder you, right? They're
Yeah.
going to impede your ability to solve problems, right?
Yeah. It's gonna put on guardrails that shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
perhaps.
And you know what? You've already figured it out. And I would look at some of the ways that he was constructing things, and I was like, that's brilliant. And
Yeah.
because I know how to sew traditionally, I would never have done it that way because
Yeah.
I would follow the rules, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? And so it makes me think a little bit about what you're talking about. Because here's, I think, another way to think about what you were talking about, which is, and it's interesting because I just wrote a book. It's going to come out in January. Um,
Okay. Let's get
and
it.
and I just wrote about this exact thing. So what happens is that oftentimes either, I mean, you were lucky enough to have a mentor, but I think oftentimes we read leadership books, right?
Mhm.
And biographies to try to understand who the great leaders are and what they do.
Mhm.
I think what ends up happening is get a lot of conflicting information. You get the person who says, you got to be up at 5 a.m. and you got to do these five
Yeah.
things in order
Yeah.
to be productive. And then you've got
Mhm.
somebody else who says, you've got to follow your own rhythms, right? In
Mhm.
order to
Right.
get in the groove, right? And
Yeah.
you get a lot of different information. I
Yeah.
think two things happen. It's more than two things. First of all, we as humans, we always want to find the answer. That's
Right.
number one. Number two is everybody writes these books as if they have the definitive answer,
Yeah.
right? They have the answer. And very much like your CEO said to you, what he basically said is, this is how I became successful. So this is what you should do to become successful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. For sure.
Right. And
And
he's not wrong.
No, he's not. And I think the majority of people, if they have the opportunity, they should try that. Actually, they should do that, actually. It
Right.
depends on your personality and what you aspire to,
That's right.
honestly, and how you're made. And to your point, there's no set path. I
That's
mean,
right.
I remember another manager that I had. He was an investment banker for a while at UBS,
Hmm.
and I was having breakfast with him, and I was like, this was early in my career, and I was like, hey, I feel like if I don't do these things in 2 years, then I need this job, and then 4 years, and then he was basically like, hey, they're like, basically don't think that way. That's the wrong way to think about it. It's what people say you should do, but he was like, you can't mess up because I thought if you missed the sequence in the step, you messed up.
Right.
He's saying you can't mess up. And it took me a while to understand that because I had been so trained to follow a process. And I think that's what you're trying to avoid for your son. And it just reminded me of that. And I think a big part of my journey, at least, was unlearning the things that I learned.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah,
so,
yeah, Josh, that is something, right? And it is so interesting. Like, I don't know if that former manager will watch this podcast, but I think the other unbelievably cool thing about this is there are people who drop little nuggets on you that in a lot of ways end up to be pivotal, right? They end up to be
mhm.
life changing. And yet, he was just having breakfast, right? It
Yeah,
was just a comment that he made, right?
yeah,
And so, manager, if you are listening to this, you changed Joss's life and thank you.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's doing great things now, greater
Awesome.
things.
I love that. All right. Okay. So let me ask you this. So, what is very cool is that you've revealed to us that you are a younger leader,
Mhm.
but also very accomplished already, right? So, what is one thing that people look at you and they're like, oh, he's got that all figured out?
Mhm.
That underneath it all, you are still wrestling with,
I think there's a season for everything. There are seasons for struggles, there's seasons for victories, right? And there's seasons where you're really content, and there's seasons where you're discontent. And I think life ebbs and flows through life milestones, right? Graduating college, starting a job, getting married, having kids, your kids leaving the house, right? Retiring, and then even in retirement, right? You see your parents go needing more assistance sometimes. So what you think about and what matters, it changes, but who you are, it really stays the same. And I think for me, I've learned that it doesn't matter how somebody looks. It doesn't necessarily mean that their life is all good. And it's because I've got my own struggles that I work through. And actually, I think that's the design of life. It's to be able to go through struggles and to be able to learn from them and to become a better person from them. You can't grow without struggles. You can't grow without challenges and difficulties. It's really the culmination of proving to yourself that you can do hard things that allow you to do harder
right?
things.
And I think that this expectation, which maybe has been magnified by what we see people posting oftentimes on social media, is this idealized existence, right?
Mhm,
And one thing that I think is interesting, and I'm curious what you think, is
mhm,
that you brought up this idea of happiness.
mhm,
And I think we often think that's the end game, right? We want
mhm,
to be happy. My sort of question is if you never had hardship, if you never had anything bad happen, which frankly, I think as humans doesn't
Hmm.
exist. But
Yeah.
like, how would you even know what happy felt like, right? How would you even know what happy was, right? If you had nothing to compare it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I can only think of a story that I heard. And there was a gal from North Korea that escaped, and she wrote a book. I forgot what her name was, but she did some talk and I listened to it. And in North Korea, they don't have a word for love. The word for love doesn't exist, even amongst families. So the
Uh-huh.
concept of love, they don't even know what that is. They see dead people just on the street, right, starving, and none of the media is covering this, but this is just the reality of what goes on in North Korea. And so their concept of love doesn't exist. So if you don't know joy or happiness, like her, she had to learn it, what the word was first, and then understand that it's a normal and natural human experience. So just because you don't know it, it doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to see it and then learn it. But
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I think about around what you're talking about is I live this philosophy. And it's something that I think as a parent, I am probably the proudest that I figured this out while my kids were young and was really able to instill this in them.
Mhm.
And what's super interesting, Josh, is that I would say it's probably the foundational piece of my coaching practice as well,
Okay.
which is you are responsible for yourself,
Yeah,
right? That,
100%.
listen, lots of things happen in this world that
Hmm.
you cannot control. Lots
Yeah.
of things that happen to you, you cannot control,
Hmm.
right? You, though, get to decide whether you are a victim or you are a survivor,
Yeah.
right? Like
That's,
how you take your experience and the
hmm.
story that you tell yourself about that
Hmm.
and what you do about it. And listen, just to be super clear to anybody who's listening, there are
Hmm.
lots of bad things that happen to people, okay? And I
Yeah.
am not by any stretch of the imagination like being glib about this or saying
Hmm.
that this is easy because it is not. But I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, you only got one life to live,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And your ability to choose life, no
Hmm.
matter what has happened to you, like that's all you got, right?
Yeah. 10. And I love that you bring that up. You do only have one life, and it's up to you to figure out how you want to live it. And just going back to our earlier conversation, I really enjoy learning. I love to learn about different perspectives and concepts, and that's part of how I'm wired in terms of my personality type. And if you know the Enneagram, if you've taken that or Myers-Briggs, right? I'm a five, so I love to learn the more of the academic, right?
Mhm.
I think there's always something to learn in science, in current processes. I'm not good enough to say my way is the best way. There's always a better way. And so I think that takes humility and understanding that there's a lot of smart people out there and there's a lot of different perspectives that I want to keep myself open to. And I think the second part of that is in science, we know that in the whole atomic habits thing, right? It's like the little habits that you do, it's really who you are. And the 100% capacity of your brain, 5% of that is in the subconscious, what you do automatically.
That's right.
And the 15% is what you can focus on and do. So, in reality, if you are in more of a negative mindset, your 15% is just simply reinforcing that and building on that. So, that's what your life becomes
Mhm.
regardless of the circumstances and the reality. On the flip side, if you're living in joy, you're living in your intentions, you're becoming the person you've always dreamed of becoming, it's the opposite where you're connecting that 15%, you're choosing intentional actions to override that 85%. This is what the brain science tells us, right?
That's
The
right.
the Huberman, if you guys know about Huberman labs, at Stanford and all the brain science people.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
just sharing what they shared and what I've learned.
yeah. So
So
I have, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
the
finish up.
onus is on the individual.
That's right. Yeah. So I have just a funny little story to tell you about that. And really
It's
how,
not easy, by the way. I'm sorry.
right.
It's not easy.
Right. But
It's
here's one of the ways in which, tying up a lot of things we were talking about, teaching myself really look at my own story, the things that I say, taking responsibility for my own things. So I'm going to give you, I think it can be very trite, right? It's either trite
yeah,
or not, right? Sort of
yeah,
like being a little
yeah.
bit pregnant.
Sure. Yeah.
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 So anyway, I recently said to a friend, I needed to do a quick errand. Okay. We were
Okay.
together. I needed to do a quick errand.
Yeah.
And then we were both going to the same place afterwards. Right. And I said, hey, I need to do this quick errand. You can either come with me or, you can just go. Right. And we got to the place where I needed to do the errand. She said, okay, I'll see you later. And I was irritated,
Okay.
right? And so, what is
Because you
so,
wanted to do it with her?
yeah,
Or okay.
right. And there was
Yeah.
plenty of time,
Yeah. Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
And what is so interesting about that, and I know it's a super little
Hmm.
example,
Yeah.
but I think we do this all the time, every day,
Hmm.
which is, I think earlier in my life, the story I would have told you, Josh, is, you know what?
For sure.
It was such a short time. Like, why couldn't she have just come with me? And I would have focused the story about her,
Sure.
right? What's so interesting about it is I literally said to her, come with me or don't come with
Sure.
me,
Sure.
right? And she
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm not going to come with you. I set that one up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can I be mad at her for doing this that I actually set up, right?
Totally.
And I was
Yeah.
just sort of, okay, Kim, let's not go there, right?
Right.
It's not really fair.
Yeah.
But I do think when we talk about those unconscious patterns,
Hmm.
right? When our brain is just wired to make it about somebody else and not about
Hmm.
yourself,
Yeah.
like we unconsciously, I think, do those things, right? And it even goes back to where we expend our energy, right? From the very
Hmm.
first question that you
Yeah.
sort of said, I got to
Hmm.
figure out where I'm going to spend my energy,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, if I really wanted her to come with me,
Mm.
then I just needed to make that request, right?
Correct.
But
Correct.
don't give somebody a choice that really only has one right answer,
Yep. Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And that is something actually that I created.
Yeah, and it could have been a bunch of different things. Maybe she had something else she needed to do too. Something else came up, right? But I mean, if you wanted her to come with you, then you could have just said, "Hey, would you come with me?"
Right.
And she
Yeah,
could have said no,
right.
and
And then
then at least you would have tried.
that's right. So I think what struck me about it is, again, I think if I'd done all the work on myself
Hmm.
that I've done, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have even noticed it,
Yeah.
right? I wouldn't have noticed what I did, but
Right.
I would have noticed what she did. But I would not have the perspective on myself, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's such a good lesson for everybody,
Hmm.
right? Listen, I am a fan of taking responsibility for your part of things. I asked you, what irrational hill are you willing to die on?
Yeah.
Here's
Hmm.
the other side of this. People often die on hills that aren't even theirs, right?
Dude, that's correct.
Right?
Waste of effort and energy, in my opinion,
Exactly. Right. And
because
yeah, go ahead.
you've got so many problems in your own life. Why focus on somebody else's? You've got
Ex-
so many milestones you can move in your own life.
That's right. Yeah.
But just real quick, I just wanted to bring up this quote that I read today. For things to change, you must change. For things to become better, you must become better.
Oh, I love that.
Jim
Do you know, can
Rohn.
you tell us who said that quote?
Jim Rohn, a
Ah,
legend.
a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
God.
it,
That's
and
going to
it
be my new mantra. I
and
love
it really
that.
comes back to what you were trying to instill in your kids, that they're responsible for their actions and their own life. And
That's right.
in a healthy family, you learn that early on
That's right.
because as an adult, you don't have parents that are going to feed you, cook for you, take care of you in the same way that you do as adult kids, as
That's
you
right.
were in adolescent kids.
Yeah. Hey, listen,
So,
you know what? I think that the biggest gift that you can give your children, because what that message is, you're responsible for yourself, is also, so how do you want to solve that?
mhm,
Right? Let's talk that
exactly.
through,
Yeah,
right? So then they have this sense of, I trust myself,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I know I have a support system around me,
Mhm.
but I got this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the problems, some arguments that I've read, some opinions that I've read, and data, it shows that marriage rates, birth rates, and why it's been pushed back. And it's because the expectation for when you do responsible things in life,
Mm.
it gets pushed back as well. So you're basically playing for longer years of your life than it was in the past. And I think a lot of the problems that we're experiencing today in society is because we have kids that haven't learned this in the home. I mean,
Right.
I certainly didn't in the way some in some ways I did, but in the ways where you're really learning that your actions have consequences or rewards
Hmm.
as a direct step of what
That's
you
right.
do. So
Excuse me.
that gets trained. You have to be
Okay.
intentional.
So here's what's interesting, I think, Josh, about that. I met somebody recently who employs a lot of college students and entry level, like hourly employees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And she's relatively young herself, but she started with and trust me, she didn't say it quite this way. I'm going to be a little dramatic, but
Right.
it's these days, right? They're
Right.
so irresponsible and,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I think on the one hand, I
You're
don't
still a
want
kid.
I don't want to dismiss it. The kinds of challenges that she's facing,
Yeah.
they're real, right?
Totally.
But here's what's interesting about this, Josh, is that instead of complaining about it,
Mm.
I'm like, okay, so what would behoove you and do exactly what you're talking about, which is actually train people. Because here's the way, at
Yes,
least I
exactly.
break this challenge down. I break this challenge down is you as an employer have an expectation when people are going to show up, how they're going to show up, how they're going
Hmm.
to do their job, and how they're going to dress for the
Yeah.
job, all
Hmm.
the things, right?
Yeah.
Except for like when you need to show up.
Mhm.
Most all those things are unwritten. You have made assumptions
Yeah.
that how you work,
Yeah.
that they understand what that looks like, and that they are
Right.
somehow going to magically show up the way you need them to,
Correct.
right? And so I was like, here's what I would suggest.
Mm.
I would suggest that you create a list of expectations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do not assume anything. The
Hmm.
best thing that could happen to you is a prospective employee rolls their eyes when they look at that because
Right.
they're like, of course, right?
Right.
But I'm like, and you need to have them sign off on that.
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
thing is that, again, you can do it out of anger, but I
Hmm.
think, Josh, the more important thing is be respectful.
Hmm.
Okay? These people are not irresponsible
Hmm.
loafers. They just haven't been trained. Nobody has said to them necessarily that
Right.
these are what the expectations are.
Yeah.
So instead of, oh my God, do you believe that I have to tell them that they have to
Mhm.
show up, right?
Yeah.
On time?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You might have to.
right. Like,
If
how
they're in high
about,
school, yeah, you might actually, they might not
right.
know that.
So how about
Legit.
laying it out there for them?
Yeah.
Not like in, oh my God, you're all so stupid, but
Mhm.
here's what doing a good job here looks like.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, it is the standards that you have and whether or not you're gonna enforce them.
That, oh
Um,
yeah, that's a whole nother, you're exactly right. That is we could do a whole podcast just on accountability,
yeah. And
right?
and it takes and that takes some time to develop that
100%.
backbone,
Yeah,
but particularly in businesses that struggle a bit, like even my business, I was there. I learned this through experience. I didn't have standards, I didn't have
that's right.
expectations. And when I decided to really make this entrepreneurship journey my own, and it became part of my identity, where it is just who I am, I realized that those things have to happen. And if you can't follow them, this is not the organization for you.
Right.
Skill gaps, sometimes we can help, like effort, hunger, or fit, that we can't.
That's right.
But like through process and skill training, you can eliminate a lot of that.
Yeah, I
But the
agree.
hunger factor, whether they want to be there or they don't, and those are the usually the folks you have to start replacing.
And I think, Josh, you said something I think really important here, which is that a lot of people talk about, a lot of leaders talk about motivating kind of the troops, right?
Hmm.
Motivate. I agree with you 100%. You're either intrinsically motivated or you're not. Can a leader help spark that, turn it on?
Yeah,
But if I have zero internal motivation, there is nothing that you are going to say or do that's going to motivate me,
agreed. Agreed.
right?
There's got to be a pain in the individual's life that's big enough that makes them want to change. Maybe the motivator is the kick that they needed at the time, the spark plug, if you will, when a car starts. There's fuel, air, and
Yeah,
spark. It just sparks to get the engine going. They're the engine. They decide if they want to rev up and
right.
start working. But
That's right.
everybody does need a spark from time to time. It can come from God, it can come through nature, it can come through a friend, right? It can come
Right.
through a stranger.
Or just some random thing that somebody says that just,
It's right. It just
yeah,
exactly. But the underlying hunger has to be there.
yeah,
Can't you can't give that to somebody.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
and that goes back to our discussion on you're responsible for your own actions. So
that's right.
if you want a particular life or you want to do something you've always wanted to do, you've got to change yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so great. All right. I just have one really quick last question for you.
Yeah.
So what's one unconventional or mindset shift that's helped you grow your current business?
I don't know if this is unconventional now, but I think slowing down and spending more time alone more productive than actually doing the work.
Giving
So,
yourself some
so
thinking.
do what I do now is every morning I spend some time doing some meditation. I actually read the scriptures, usually daily. I have some devotional that I do. I have a reading plan on how I can rewire my unconscious. It's about habits. It's based in science. And then I do some exercises. I go to the mental gym, if you will. And I can go more into that, but I won't. But I spend anywhere from, could be an hour, sometimes 2 hours first thing in the morning. So I used to wake up a little later than this, but these days I try to wake up before 6, so 5:30 or so, and do them
Hmm.
beforehand, before the day
Yeah.
starts. And I've got young kids and other things to do in the business, so it's the only hours that I can do.
Right.
And then in the evening, I'll do the same thing. I'll unwind. I might write some things down that I've learned and document them. But I'm giving my brain rest, allowing myself to receive information and experiences, and then also to remind myself of who I want to be and how I'm becoming that person in the
I
unconscious.
yeah.
So
Oh,
I feel like I'm speaking cryptically, but it's legitimately, I pray, I read, I meditate, I imagine who I can be, and I'm reading nonfiction, pushing out the negative, all the social media, the comparison, things that actually don't matter, because you have to be quiet and still to really hear what you want and what matters to you, because there's so much noise coming in, so many Zoom calls, so many conversations. You need to have time to converse with yourself and remind yourself what you're doing in this life. What's the purpose
mhm.
of your life? And for me, that's going to be a lot different than for someone else.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even know what that is. But you
Yeah.
have to work on it.
That's
You
there you
have
go.
you have to protect it even.
Yeah. Josh, what an incredible conversation. We're going to call you the philosopher,
Got it. I'm down
which
for that.
yeah, I have just thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. What I love about doing this podcast is that it just goes in so many interesting directions, right?
Mm.
And I think the way that you think about things, it's different, right? It's different than the other guests that I've had on. And that's why I do this,
Yeah.
right? To get these different points of view. And I just wish you all the success in the world on this. And audience, again, if you want a company and a leader who is really going to thoughtfully help you get on Amazon, get online, and really sell stuff, Josh's information will be in the chat. So please reach out to him. For me, I actually have two asks of you. One is if you like this conversation, and honestly, how could you not? If you like this conversation, please subscribe. It just helps other people find us and being able to listen to these incredible guests. And then the second thing is that I do a newsletter once a week, and it's always just got one thing in it and then an action that you can take from that. So I'd love to share that with you. So, you have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom with my guest, Josh Lee. I'm Kim Miller-Hershon. Go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire.